There is a man who's on the road. He's a small amphibian. Toad on the road. Toad on the road.
Greetings, my fellow Kekastanis. It's time to talk about my experience at Kilroy 2018. What an event, what a time to be alive. What started out as a small event planned by internet friends who simply wanted to have a smaller, more laid-back version of VidCon where they could say whatever the fuck they wanted to say quickly snowballed into one of the largest free speech events of our generation, and then quickly crashed and burned into one of the biggest trash fires of our lifetime. Now, generally speaking, any YouTuber convention is going to turn into a trash fire. It takes a very special kind of person to spout off their milquetoast opinions into a $120 microphone with the expectation of payment. This isn't to say that there aren't decent people who make a living off of YouTube videos, but as a rule of thumb, there is a certain level of narcissism and derangement that is required to be successful at this particular career path.
Turn off that pesky ad block.
And it is that level of derangement that made it possible for a few people with no experience organizing a major event to crowdfund over $85,000 for what was essentially one giant Google Hangout in a hotel. If you've been under a rock for the past 6 months, you might be asking yourself, what the hell happened to this event? Well, I'm not here to hold your fucking hand and walk your dumbass through it, so I'll give you the long and short of it. During VidCon 2017, Andy Worski, Failure Accomplished, and I believe a few others were all sat around a table shooting the shit when they came up with the idea of an event geared more towards their particular sphere of YouTube. Sounds pretty fucking gay, right? A certain hole by the name of Based Mama caught wind of this discussion and a light bulb went off in her head. She knew that she would be capable of co-opting the idea, ramping it up a few notches, and milking YouTubers' gullible fans out of tens of thousands of dollars. Wait, it seems that I misremembered. It wasn't a light bulb that went off in her head. It was a menorah. In the coming months, she, along with many others, successfully crowdfunded $85,000 for a spectacular free speech event which they dubbed Kilroy. In case you're unfamiliar, Kilroy was a doodle that many World War II GIs were fond of using in order to keep spirits high while they and their comrades were mercilessly slaughtered during the most horrific war in modern history. So it makes sense that they would pick that symbol, because sitting on your fat ass complaining about YouTube demonetization on the internet is essentially the same thing as being maimed or killed to preserve the free world. Now, many YouTubers had their reservations about this idea, but YouTubers being YouTubers, they didn't want to cause any of that pesky drama or infighting, so they just let it happen. As the event began to take on a tangible form, a few red flags began to pop up, a few minor things, such as the legally binding contracts, the non-disclosure agreements, the non-compete agreements, the fact that certain speakers of the alternative right persuasion didn't seem to be welcome.
Oy vey, shut it down.
Many of the speakers were not being compensated, and those who were barely received anything more than travel and lodging, but most of all was the almost $40,000 of the $85,000 crowdfunded budget, which was to go to security and administration fees. $40,000 for security and administration fees for a conference of YouTubers in a hotel. These problems compounded upon one another for several months, and by the time the event took place, most of the original speakers had pulled out, and over half of the original budget was refunded. It really was uncanny. You see, unlike most events, which usually have to take place before they melt down into a fucking disaster, Kilroy went up in flames months before anyone had the opportunity to show up and take a hot piss in their ball pit. This all coincided with the Kraut & T Discord doxing scandal, and the combined impact of these two events shattered the online community known as the Skeptics. Heartbreaking, isn't it? So by this point, you must be asking yourself, Toad, why in the world did you end up attending? Why did you violate your hardline stance against meeting up in real life with cringy fucking YouTubers? Well, that's a bit of a funny story. During the downfall of Kilroy and the collapse of the skeptic community, a new genre emerged. Internet blood sports. Internet blood sports is a fairly simple concept. Put on a live stream in the style of talk radio with dedicated hosts, recurring guests, and leave the door open to any two or more individuals that would like to come on and have a knockout, drag-out, no-holds-barred argument about anything from the legitimacy of the white ethnostate to why Dr. Randomercam is such a bitch-made nigga. I find these shows supremely entertaining, as they tend to make my workdays fly by. But during this time, something else happened. I made a few decent videos, and the host of these shows seemed to enjoy them. The result being, I made a few appearances on these shows, particularly Tankasaw's Morning Kumite. Now, I certainly wouldn't call any of these guys my friends, but I would say we're on good terms. So, imagine my shock when I checked my Twitter one day to discover an influx of tweets with one simple statement: Toad on the road. Upon reviewing the latest installment of the Morning Kumite, I discovered that I had been nominated as the official Bloodsports representative at Kilroy. If you are at all familiar with the Kumite, they have a knack, a talent really, for taking something mildly humorous and playing it out so many times you want to jump off a goddamn skyscraper into a crowd of 6-year-olds. Imagine my horror when I became that mildly funny thing. At first, I was a bit annoyed, then properly disgruntled, and then something strange happened. I couldn't handle the pressure. They made songs about me, for Christ's sakes. The E-fame. I became addicted to it. I fucking need it. It's like a drug. It's why I compulsively make videos every 3 months and turn down 90% of the requests I get to go on live streams. Alas, I relented and officially announced I would be attending Kilroy as a featured audience member. A representative, if you will, of internet blood sports. I would go. I would find that ball pit, and I would fulfill everyone's dream of taking a nice, hot piss at it. I would let my anonymity be a martyr for everyone who was fucked over by this abominable shit show. Except for Baked Alaska. Fuck that fat loser. As the days grew near, I began to grow nervous. I was having second thoughts. Hell, I'd say I was downright nervous. So I reached out to my good pal Scrub and asked him if he would attend with me. Surprisingly, he said yes. And then the day finally came. We made our way across the country to fulfill our destiny. We checked into a hotel room and devised a plan. I, being the handsome 5'2" black man that I am, would be the boots on the ground, while Scrub, being the morbidly obese, 450-pound, half-black, quarter-Asian, quarter-white, wheelchair-bound cripple that he is, would broadcast updates via YouTube live streams from the hotel room. With much trepidation, I made my way to the event floor. The first thing I did, of course, was find the restroom and snap a photo for all to see. I tweeted it out, and while many people found this humorous, there were a few who had their doubts as to the validity of my claim. So I had no choice but to make my way to the nearest broom closet and snap a photo of my event pass, with my real name blurred out, of course. This turned out to be a huge mistake, because shortly thereafter, I was unblocked and contacted by one of the most rationalist of skeptics ever to walk the hallowed halls of YouTube. That's right. Doc's Holiday himself was hot on my trail. He tried to bait me out with the promise of whiskey and the opportunity to give him a golden shower, but I was not so easily fooled. I'm an elusive little nigga, and I knew that the moment I told him who I was, it would all be over for me. Now, I was fairly certain at this point that Jeff didn't really have any clue as to who I was, so I played it cool. It really was easy to hide in plain sight, to be honest. What with the massive crowd... What with the massive crowds that were gathered at the panels I attended, but as it turns out, Jeff wasn't the only one searching for me. Daily Showa co-host Bunty King was tweeting me for a meetup as well, and after publicly turning down his request, who appears under my tweet? Yet again, the one and only Doc's Holiday, further insinuating he knew who I was. It was at this point that I became worried that my identity may have been compromised, so I made my way back up to the hotel room. As Scrub and I sat at the table, planning our next course of action for the following day, the unthinkable happened. Alt-right extremist and doxer of gay Skype calls, internet historian, joined a live stream with Mundane Matt. The bulk of their conversation was about the general state of the event, but towards the end of their conversation, he revealed our secret plan, taking it to the next level. Shitting in that pit.
But I can say honestly, no one's pissed in this ball pit, because there's no real ball pit, it's just some stress balls.
So well, I don't know about that. Toad and Scrub told me they're going to be taking a dump in the main fucking conference hall before the big panel tomorrow. So I don't know if that's yours or whose that's going to be, but they're going to take a shit in there.
Okay.
And thus, the entire event was put on high alert. We attempted to recover this plan by having failure accomplished feed false information to the attendees. While, of course, it worked on the only developmentally challenged speaker at the event, Mundane Matt, fastest doxer in the West, Jeff Holiday, wasn't so easily fooled.
And him, Fisty Winters.
We're gonna give a new meaning to the term ball pit. Hey!
Hey man, we'll get naked on the action too.
I hear some people wanted to poop in the ball pit.
Yeah, people that aren't even here. Because I know they're not even here, but I wasn't going to let Jim know I know.
They're here.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are.
Well, they're not.
Yes, they are.
Who aren't here are here.
They're not here.
Yes,
Failure confirmed it.
Pretending.
Who's okay? Who?
Fellas.
I know who's here.
Who?
We'll talk about it later.
Yeah, is there audio on that thing?
Yeah, there's audio.
Can we at least agree upon that?
It was that statement that truly unsettled me. So in the black of night, when all was still, Scrub and I made our escape. And here I am now, living each day in fear. Jeff knows who I am. I have to actively censor myself for fear of being doxxed if I happen to offend him or any of his fellow YouTube intellectuals. I have no other recourse. I can't go on pretending to be something I'm not. I'm now officially leaving this account behind. It's been a fun ride, lads. Actually, there might be another option. Maybe. Just maybe. I'm not really a 5'2" black man. Maybe I didn't actually even go to Kilroy. Could there be a chance that those pictures I tweeted out were lifted directly from one of the speakers and no one even noticed? Am I trying to say that I didn't even attend? That I was sitting at home in my recliner, playing video games and making vague tweets in order to fuck with retarded e-celebrities who think they're smarter than they really are? No, it couldn't be that simple. I must have cured my soy voice and became some random Hispanic man named Roger.
Hey, you guys, I have a question for you. Okay, so everybody kept asking me if I was this guy named Toad. Who is that?
Fucking idiots. Leave that poor man alone. Jesus Christ.
Wizard of Cause shouldn't be using the word. No one. He shouldn't be claiming to be an intellectual. All right. He looks more like a Down syndrome child.
Oh.
That's right. And if I could give him one piece of advice, I'd say that maybe he wouldn't be so fucking retarded if his mother hadn't had, like we talked about, he's got all this fetal alcohol syndrome. Back when he was a kid and they played peekaboo, he peeked and she booed. Man, that's an ugly fucking kid back then. They installed tinted glass at the hospital nursery just because he was born. Cause's parents are scientific proofs that two wrongs don't make a right. His family tree is a cactus, Tonka. You can tell because everyone on it's a prick. His birth certificate was a note from the nurses that said it's not too late, pinned to a small pillow. We can only guess that the actual birth took place on the highway somewhere because that's where most accidents happen. What I'm saying, Tonka, is this might not be his fault. We need the medical results from Wizard of Cause. His physical appearance is a clue. His brain's not right. It's been baked. You know what the difference between Wizard of Cause and the fucking pizza is, Tonka? Apparently it's okay to bake Wizard of Cause. It's okay to burn him. The proof's in the pudding. We cannot expect very much out of this man. I don't know what makes him so stupid, man, but it's working. It's working.
You blame it on the Kumite because you bitch made. Nick, you are so bitch made. Jeff, you are so bitch made. You blame it on the Kumite because you bitch made. Because you bitch made. Bitch made.